Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are all doing very well. I am True Crime Jules, used to be Jules of Thought, and this is my channel, Allegedly Innocent. So, last couple of days, I've just had these little like chit chats, no kind of I guess you could say no prepared, statements or comments or anything like that. Just going live and saying hello and talking to whomever, kind of stumbled on the channel. Didn't promote those two videos. They were just friendly, conversation is all they were. And so yeah, so that was they led to, though, this conversation. I mean, I'm pretty blown away by this John Ray guy. And if you're not really following this case with Rex Heuermann and the murder of, there were 11 bodies found. He's been charged with 3 of those murders, and there's one person that they believe that charges are pending. So it's a very complicated, deep, like a deep case with a lot of different people involved. Now, John Ray is the guy that you see on the screen with the little cute little hat and the little feather in it. And to be fair, this photograph, I believe, is from like the late 80s. I think maybe a little bit earlier than that. Now, the woman that is standing there at the microphone, she looks similar to Shannan Gilbert, and that would be because that is Shannan Gilbert's mother, Mari Gilbert. Now, Mari was murdered. She was killed by her another daughter after Shannan Gilbert went missing. They had this whole trauma. Mari was pushing for them to look for their daughter. They ended up discovering the 4 bodies that became the original Gilgo 4. And then at some point later on, another one of her daughters kills her. And it's a horrible, horrible, tragic tale. The young girl is having severe mental illness. She's remains in treatment today. And it was just a terrible, tragic, horrible situation all the way around. And anybody that has ever, had to live with a loved one that was having mental illness or symptoms of mental illness, it's already about the worst case imaginable, right? You're trying to manage the effects. It's terrible. But then when you add into this mix a certain level of poverty, or at least low socioeconomic, income strata, and you add into the mix the stressors of having your daughter go missing and appear to be another victim of what they believe is a serial killer, and yet they can't find her. And then you're fighting the government because you can see that these rich and powerful men are interfering with the investigation. It was just such a volatile mix, right? Like the whole thing all the way around was just volatile, and it was just awful. So John Ray is a curious guy. Anyway, now he sort of became, Mari has been described as a bulldog, that she was so focused on getting justice for her child and finding out what in the world happened. They fought, it took them 10 years fighting to get the 911 calls released. They were running up against powerful men in government, in law enforcement positions, that were playing these games and saying, "Oh no, we can't release the tapes because then it could interfere with the investigation, and then we'll never know who the killer was." And they just kept giving out these bogus, stories. And to make a long story short, and I think it was a domino effect. So this is only my personal opinion, but I think it was a domino effect that, first you have the attorney general, the chief of police. They are revealed to be unscrupulous criminal type people. So that fell, and then there were more people in the department that fell after that. Then they had a huge scandal. Well, actually, I think the big scandal in the 77th precinct in New York was maybe a year or so before this. But it was just, I think, a cascade of law enforcement being revealed maybe to not be worthy, of the trust that had been placed in them. I don't mean law enforcement all the way across the board. I'm talking about these specific people or groups of, like 77th precinct had a real ethics problem. But anyway, I think when all that happened, I think it made it harder and you got 10 years that go by and the case is still not solved. You had all these eyewitnesses. You got this 911 call where the girl is on the call pleading and begging for her life. They come out and say that she's slurring her words. She's rambling. They can't make heads or tails out of what she's saying. She's obviously really intoxicated and drugged up and, and that she ultimately drowned because she was, I guess, irresponsible, or maybe that because she was a sex worker or whatever negative connotation this group put out about her to try to diminish her humanity, to try to remove from her the fact that she's a human being and she had absolutely no reason at all to have been the target of really bad people or a really bad person. Okay. Some people think it was one person, a serial killer. Other people that it was a group. So, and we don't know. Her case has never been solved. It's still not solved, even though we have found 11. They have found 11 people in the same area, all sex workers, and yet they still don't want to say that Shannan Gilbert was a part of this. Why? So it's the whole thing's very strange. However, this story today is not exactly about Rex Heuermann and the whole serial killer aspect. This video today is very specific to John Ray. Now, we don't know. Well, I mean, I guess we do know. It does seem that Mari had to work very hard to convince him that there was something terribly wrong out on Gilgo Beach and that she needed help, that she was being brushed aside. They even tried to keep her out when she came looking for her daughter the next day. And that she recognized that she was going up against a wall of something, power. Let's say it was a wall of power. That she had this recognition. She didn't know what it was. She couldn't name it. But that she knew that the way that her daughter's disappearance, the 911 call, the lack of action, she somehow recognized that the way that her child's disappearance was being treated was not the way that my disappearance or your disappearance would be treated. Now, is it possible that she might have been jaded by life and a little bit negative? It's just because we're poor, or she was a sex worker, or any of these things that people can find to like diminish the humanity of another person. Perhaps Mari was a little grating on the powers that be. Perhaps she was a little too quick to throw it up in their faces. Well, you don't care about what happened to my daughter because she was XYZ. Although the movie makes it look like she did not know that her daughter was doing this type of work until later on, right? When the whole thing came out about Mike Pack, who was he? Why was she with him? All that. But that was a little bit later that she didn't really understand why her daughter would have been out there, but she did recognize they're not responding. They're not giving us information. And is it because I don't matter? Because I'm, I'm not some rich muckety muck that everybody wants to think is important. And perhaps she had a point there. I mean, there's a lot of serial killers that after they've been caught, they're in prison, whatnot, they've come forward, they've answered the questions of investigators or detectives, and they will tell them, you choose people to victimize that society won't notice, that perhaps people that have been forgotten, homeless people that no one even knows if they have family or where they are, or anything like that. So maybe she was on to something there, although the movie does portray that the mother was not aware that Shannan was doing that type of work until later on. But nonetheless, she convinced John Ray to help her do something about at least finding out why they were not being more proactive in trying to find her daughter. She knew that she was dealing with financial advisors, doctors, physicians. She knew these people living in this gated community were positioned in society, had the money to buy attorneys and whatnot to protect them. So I'm sure that in many ways that she felt powerless against the people that were there in the last minutes of her daughter's known life, right? So to make a long story short, she ends up convincing John Ray, hey, I'm not crazy. This is really happening and I really need your help. And so even though the push was to find Shannan Gilbert, they didn't find her initially. They found the Gilgo 4. They began finding more bodies. And then ultimately, about a year after the Gilgo 4 were found, Shannan's body was found in the marsh behind the doctor's house, which is where she had spent more than a year begging. And well, I guess it was actually more than a year. It was like 3 years, 4 years. She had been begging and pleading and begging and pleading. Please, can we search behind your house? Please, can the cops go back into the marsh? Please, can we hire private people to go back there? And the doctor kept saying no. Interesting, right? So at the same time, you have law enforcement, this basically criminal, unscrupulous, unethical chief of police, district attorneys. They're all hiding the 911 files. Mike Pack, who is really supposed to be there for Shannan Gilbert's safety, he just says, oh, well, I tried to get her in the car and she wouldn't. And so I just went home. Everybody else says, oh, well, she got in the car. We thought she got in the car and went home with him. But we don't ever hear him on these 911 tapes. The only time we hear him is in the house when he's, she's saying, you were in on this from the beginning. They're going to kill me. She was lucid and she was aware and she knew. She was aware that there was something happening in this group of men, and she wasn't getting out of there alive. That if she went outside that house, very bad things were going to happen to her. And wow, she was right. And rather than the police being intrigued, listening to this series of 911 tapes, rather than being intrigued and horrified and arresting these guys and pulling them in for 24 hours of questioning, rather than that response, you get a completely different response, which is, hey, move along, nothing to see here. And they kept the 911 calls hidden for 10 years because that revealed their lies. The 911 calls are powerful because it showed the lies that everyone told that night. It wasn't Shannan mumbling into the phone and nobody could make out what she was saying. It was her hiding, not wanting to give away where she was. So she wouldn't answer the 911 call or officer who kept saying, what's your name? What's your name? Where are you at? And you just you think, gosh, I just want to shake that 911 operator not to recognize she's not giving you an answer for a reason. Like, can you hear her panting? She's terrified. And then you can hear her running, you can hear her feet running. It's just a traumatic, just a terrible phone call to listen to. So, when John Ray, who has been in this case since the cover-up, like before the cover-up was revealed, the attorneys for Ms. Ellerup and her children, the attorneys are ridiculing John Ray, and they're saying he's an embarrassment and he shouldn't be around, and trying to discredit him essentially. But I keep going back to the beginning. And I keep thinking, wait a second, this is the guy that was standing there with Mari Gilbert before she was killed. This is the man that went with her out there demanding to be able to search the marsh, demanding to be able to talk to homeowners, demanding to get the recordings. And the guy who happens to be in charge of the video surveillance system there says, oh gosh, we deleted it. We always delete it to make more room for more recordings. You deleted it after you had 911 calls bouncing all over your neighborhood about some young woman running down the road screaming, they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me. You think that that's not going to be significant? He admitted that he deleted them. Or in those days, it was called erasing them. So I get the need to discredit him. I understand how that can be important. But do we have to, are we blind? Like, do you only have to just accept, if it's said on television, it has to be accepted as an absolute statement of fact that is beyond questioning, right? Is that the position that television, or is that the message that television sends? That if something is spoken through the approval, I guess, of some news station or whatever, or notable personality, that if they say it, then all the rest of us, we should not think about it. We should just accept it at face value. Like, we just have to blindly, if they say, we know that we've always told you the grass is green, but now we recognize the grass is not green. The grass is actually purple. And don't question that because it's purple. We were wrong before when we said it was green. Now it's purple. We need you to believe us and move forward. And so are we now going to just go, oh, look, the grass is such a beautiful purple today? Or are you going to sit around and think, wait a minute, it doesn't look purple, and I've got good eyesight. I'm not colorblind. I'm a little confused. Why are they telling me the grass is purple? I can clearly see. Okay, well, maybe the grass is purple somewhere else. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong grass. Maybe it's just my grass that is green and their grass is purple. And so people begin to sort of, when they hear these conflicting stories, they get some new information that just doesn't match with what they already know. Then they're confused and they begin looking for an explanation and saying, how can this be? How is it possible that green grass is no longer green? Now it's considered purple. Why? Like, what's the point of that? Right? Yeah, Diamond Paw. The 911 call, that was turning the light on in the room. You listen to that 911 call, you take time to really understand what's happening in that phone call at any given moment, and you have the realization that what all those, the law enforcement, the news stations, the district attorney, what they said was a lie. It wasn't even an accidental misstep. They said things that were not true, period. So this is such a curious thing that we're back at that same point. I'm not a grass is purple kind of girl. You know what I mean? Somebody comes to me and tells me something that is dramatically different than what I've been knowing. It bothers me. And then I'm curious and trying to figure out how to explain it. I don't have this knee-jerk reaction. Oh, they're a liar. They lied. They're such a liar. They're terrible people, or they're, low-life scoundrels or grifters. I don't immediately jump to a negative evaluation of the human experience. It's more of a, how can this be? How is it that a group of people have one idea about something, and then with really no additional information, they just change to something dramatically different? Hey, Amber Rose, good morning. And so it's really odd, strange. And so when you know about John Ray himself, his story, and again, this opinion piece, commentary, is not about Rex Heuermann. It's not about the Gilgo murders, serial killers, all that. It's about this attorney, John Ray, and the history that he has with Mari Gilbert and the local law enforcement in Suffolk County before it got all cleaned up. Today it's great. Today it's perfect. It was, in fact, their new government that put together the task force. They're the ones that uncovered, hey, it is in fact Rex Heuermann, and made the arrest. So this isn't a commentary that law enforcement is bad. That's not what this is. It's dealing with reality. And the reality is they all knew they had to keep the 911 call quiet, under wraps, or they would all be unveiled as the liars that they were. And if you are not a purple grass kind of girl, then the next step is, but why? Why did they all lie? And that is what John Ray has been trying to find out. Even after Mari died, he gets no money for the work that he does on this case. He feels like this is a mission that he's on. To find out that they were, in fact, being stonewalled. To fight for 10 years to get 911 calls. And you guys know, y'all all go to Plunder and all these other channels. It is easy to get these FOIA requests done. It's a simple thing. Phone calls, police interviews, these things get released all the time. All the time. 10 years. 10 years it took to get them to release these 911 calls. And when you hear them, you go, oh my God. But it was, in fact, 100%, because I think that the chief of police had a stake in this. We don't know what it was, but I think this is wild speculation, conjecture at its finest. But, and he served prison time. He's a bad dude. Okay. Before you say, oh, that Jules, I just hate her. She's just so mean. No. This guy's a bad guy. They get released, but then they got buried. Right, Elizabeth? Yeah. And I did do a video showing that, where they did the official release. And maybe we'll go through that again. Maybe we'll show that again. They do the official release. They got a cop that stands up and he describes what you're about to hear, blah, 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 blah. Then they play what looks to be like a long 23-minute, recording. And you think, oh, yeah. She was intoxicated. She was impaired. She was using something. Something was wrong with her. Poor girl. She stumbled and just, drowned in a mud puddle. Poor baby. Terrible, tragic, cautionary tale, right? And then you get to hear the real 911 call. Now, Elizabeth, what did you think when you heard the real 911 call that had not been manipulated, right? When you hear the real 911 call, then you're like, oh my gosh, this woman is not intoxicated or impaired. She's terrified. She's hiding. Well, no, it's a little hard. Bebop, welcome. It's a little hard, Bebop, to be drowned when you're actually laying face up on a little pile that is like a stump or shrub. That's how she's found. She was lying on her back, up kind of on this mound, looking up towards the sky. It's kind of hard to drown in that situation, right? Oh, yeah. And her hyoid bone was broken. And in a very curious thing, Dr. Michael Baden said that there is a puncture wound in the middle of the hyoid. It's very curious. Very, very curious. Gomez says that's why he gets angry when Rick's wife is having donations. He was always doing this all for free. This is not a case on which one would fall on their sword. The hyoid bone was broken, Diamond Paw. This, from a report by Michael Baden, from New York, the famed coroner, that did the work in the O.J. Simpson trial and all that. Yes, Silky Southern Tea, the hyoid bone. There is this potential issue in terms of that bone being broken. Shannan Gilbert, her lovely, you see, here's another angle, y'all. I'm telling y'all, this is not a case to throw yourself on your sword. There's no clear evidence of the good guys and the bad guys. It's fraught with bad guys. There's bad guys in every corner, in every year of every decade that this thing has been going on. It's bad. It's bad. It's dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. And in this particular situation, Alex Diaz was her boyfriend of the time. He had been kind of her pimp for a short while. And he was one of these drivers like Michael Pate, or I'm sorry, Pat Pack. So he's not a squeaky clean Mr. Goody Goody either, even though he definitely tries to present himself like that. Oh, that's terrifying. You think she was chained and asked to go out from that house. Oh my gosh, it's terrifying. Michael Pack was driving these young women who were escort call girls. He essentially was acting as a pimp. And you say, no, he's just the driver. He's the protector. No, if you read his deposition, he would pick up Shannan. She would not know where her work was, where her job was. And they would go like sit up in Central Times Square or find some place to sit and wait for a call to come in. Sometimes he was calling, trying to find John's. So yeah, he was in fact acting as a pimp. Weren't you, Michael Pack? And actually, frankly, I can't even believe that Mike Pack hasn't been arrested. Honestly, I can't. But Alex Diaz, her boyfriend / protector or pimp or whatever, he had beat her so badly in the couple of years before she died that she had a metal plate in her mouth. Her jaw was crushed because of him. So let that sink in. But when you look at his interview or you read his deposition, he presents himself like he loved her so much and he was so protective and worried about her. And it was all Mari's fault for not being a good mom. I mean, it is infuriating to read, knowing that he had beat this young woman so severely that she had to have her jaw reconstructed. So there is that possibility with the broken hyoid, is that perhaps maybe it could have been broken during this beating that she took. Michael Baden didn't comment on that, but that would not answer for the curiosity. Why is there a puncture wound in the hyoid, right in the middle of it? There have been some doctors that have come out and they've sort of suggested that it's possible, unlikely. One of them said unlikely, but possible. Maybe could have been some kind of like some kind of little cyst or tumor that had developed there, and then through decomposition the soft tissue went away and left the circular hole that is there. But again, this doctor said theoretically it might be something like that, but he finds it really unlikely. So there was that. So I'm trying to give you all the information, right? I'm trying to, both sides. So John Ray is a man who went up against Suffolk County law enforcement, including the prosecutor's office, district attorney. Not a faint of heart kind of guy. He's stayed with this family since when Shannan went missing and Mari hired him, and then she was murdered and the daughter put in the hospital and all these, terrible things happened. He has stayed with this family, working for them, not being paid. Because he believes that something horrible was going on in Suffolk County. He believes it. And he did get the 911 calls released. And what did it show? Also, the new law enforcement structure that is there, the special team that investigated this, they are working with John Ray. They've made references to conversations they've had with John Ray, the way that he has contributed. He has made comments about working with them. So they don't think that he's a nut. They don't think that he's crazy and an embarrassment and should be disregarded. It's complicated, isn't it? It's so complicated. So complicated. Hey, Gray investigates. Your name kills me every time. So it's a complicated case. And it, he's now we're getting some pretty crazy accusations from John Ray. Now, I did find, let me see if I deleted it. Did I? Oops. Yeah, I guess I did. Shoot. He does talk about that. Sorry, I was trying to see if I could find the interview. All right, I'll just relay what he said in the interview because I can't. I'll get struck anyway if I. Okay. So in one of the interviews, he tells the story. It's chilling. This is scary as hell. So he's been following this case for the longest time. He's been very active in trying to get people to look at law enforcement in Suffolk County and to recognize they're up to no good. He ended up being proven right. And so fast forward now, they put together the special investigation team specific for the Gilgo murders, and which for him, and I'm going to go ahead and say for me too, I believe that Shannan, let me put it this way. I think we know who may have been involved in the death of Shannan Gilbert, but I also think that those other people, not all of them, but a few of those others that were found out there were also, they lived whatever it was that she lived that night. I believe that there was a group of people that were using human beings as sport. And that, that's all I want to say. So, I'm trying to remember the exact, so one of the stories that he told, and this was within 3 months or so before Rex Heuermann was arrested. His daughter is going out to California. She's going to school. Was it California or Connecticut? I don't remember if it was East Coast or West Coast, but she was going to the end where the ocean is on one of the sides of the country. That she had left, I think it was California, that she had left to go to school. And he took her to the airport, and she got on an airplane and she left and she went to go do her things. Well, later, 12 hours later, whatever, 18 hours later, he gets this phone call at his house, his own phone number. And it says, "I see a young woman in blue crawling through a window." And he's like, "Wow, that's very strange." And then a little bit later on, there's another phone call. There's a woman's voice in the background, but it sounds like it's recorded. It sounds like somebody was manipulating and playing with the audio. But this woman calls, a guy calls, a woman's in the background. It sounds like she's recorded, and her voice says, "Are you enjoying your pizza?" And he was like, "That's just crazy. It's 9:00 at night. I don't know. He said they were eating chicken, rice, some normal meal, not pizza. And so he gets a strange phone call, and then minutes after that, a phone call comes into his wife's phone number, and it's a recording of the weird phone call he just received live on his phone. So it's games. It's manipulative, frightening. Whoever's doing this is being very sadistic, and the narcissism is shining through, that they feel smug and powerful. They're enjoying the fear. They're enjoying inciting, using control to game. And so they call and they say, "Are you enjoying your pizza?" And, he and his wife and his other child are there, and they're just like, "We're having rice and chicken. What's wrong with you?" They hang up, and within about 3 minutes after these two strange phone calls, somebody rings the doorbell. They get up to go to the doorbell, and there's Domino's Pizza, and there's 3 pizzas there. Somebody's trying to deliver pizzas. And they're like, "We didn't order pizza." And they're saying, "You did order it. You ordered it on your phone. It's right here." He said, "I did not order pizza on my phone. I'm eating chicken and rice right now." So it had not been, the pizza was not paid for. They were supposed to pay it when it was, delivered. And the account that they used, they gave John Ray's phone number. So they got scared then, right? Remember, this is all happening right before Rex Heuermann is arrested. So they get scared and they call out to California, wherever the daughter is. And to make a long story short, when he took his daughter to the airport, put her on the plane, she was wearing a light blue jogging suit, like workout clothes, sweatsuit. I think he said it was like a sweatsuit. Horrifying, isn't it? Horrifying. But still games. Toying with him. And he's got many of these stories of these weird, strange, bizarre, designed to intimidate occurrences. And so it's terrifying. Perhaps a doctor with a God complex? Perhaps, Elizabeth. That has been known to happen. So, when I hear this attorney come out and say, "Oh, John Ray's a crazy guy. He's an embarrassment to the profession. He shouldn't be around, blah, blah, blah." That's my moment, where I kind of look out the window and I go, "But the grass is not purple. Why are you telling me it's purple? It's not. It's green. And my eyes can see it's green. And green matches with what I know about chlorophyll and photosynthesis. Purple has nothing to do with the reality of photosynthesis and the color of grass. So why are you telling me it's purple?" And so when you go back and you really get to know the Shannan Gilbert case, and you get really intimate with the details, and you understand the length of time this went on, the horrible various tragedies, how these girls in this family, how each one of them suffered with their own demons, and this guy was there with them. That's not a crazy man. That's a good person. Just trying to do the right thing, right? So now I'm having, what do you call it? Cognitive dissonance. I'm having a lot of cognitive dissonance. But yeah, Kentucky bluegrass. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, so I have talked on my channel often about the difference between the cognitive triad and the tetrad, right? and that you have to add sadism as a fourth factor for that to pick up on the serial killer type people. All right. The dark triad doesn't do it, it's not very good statistically. It's not accurate in pulling out those people whose criminal behavior is so dramatically odd and offensive. It won't discern like a regular killer, like somebody just gets mad and they go off and they just kill someone because they're freaked out about, moment of passion or whatever. It doesn't discriminate between that type of killer and a killer like, I don't know, the Long Island serial killer. They look the same statistically on paper. And we know that they're not the same. There's nothing similar about them. A wife who gets jealous and kills her husband is not the same thing as Eileen Wuornos killing a man. It is not even remotely connected. And so statistically, you can't learn very much about this very unusual type of person if you can't pull them out, if you can't separate them from all the other criminal actions. If you want to learn about them, you got to be able to identify the group and then compare it against other groups. And they just struggled to do that. They couldn't, other than qualitative research where you sit down with the person, you interview them, and then you can recognize it. But to get like a population statement on the rate of these types of people, how they operate, it's no utility at all. But then they learned that if you add sadism, if you measure proclivities towards sadism, then the numbers statistically, you could pull out the serial killers and discriminate serial killers from another violent criminal. And that was a very powerful moment in terms of research and understanding and that kind of thing. So it's a big deal. And I've often said to people that were interested in this whole dark triad thing, what you really want to do is you really want to know about the dark tetrad. That's the one that is so illuminating for these really, the monsters that walk among us. All right. You say the grass is not purple. You better prepare for the backlash. Oh, I'm always living backlash, Elizabeth. I know. I'm so over the judgmental. I don't know why people can't just communicate, But anyway, not my circus, not my monkeys. I think I said that backwards. So anyway, so that sadistic control of taunting John Ray, talking about I see a young girl wearing blue, knowing he had just dropped his daughter off at the airport, then sending on pizzas, it's just making an attempt to take one's control from them, right? It's a game. And a lot of these serial killers do it. They like it. Many of them will operate for long periods of time without being revealed. And so initially they're very excited by what they're doing. They know they're pushing the envelope. They know they're living on the edge of humanity. They're doing things that other people don't have the ability to do. But then eventually that's not what they're really after. And they begin to realize, wait a minute. I mean, I'm feeling pretty great about being a real sicko and being able to do what other people don't do because that makes me unique and I don't have anything else that sets me apart or makes me important or notable, but at least I'm unique, that I'm a true monster, right? But eventually they get to a point and they're like, well, no one knows I'm a monster. Or worse, they begin saying that someone else is doing the work that he's actually been doing. And then he gets jealous. And he's like, wait a minute. Why are they accusing this guy? This is my handiwork. This is my art. I'm the one that's doing this, and I'm not getting any of the love. I want the Ted Bundy serial killer love. I don't want to go into some old common, stupid Joe Blow robber. I did it. I need that. And then they get really frustrated because no one knows how great they are. So that's where the games start then. They begin taunting the officer, FBI or police or whatever, putting things in the newspaper, leaving little weird art issues, things at the scene of the crime to make it, we're going to write stories in the paper about it. And the reality is that you're just a disgusting, sick human being. That's it. That's the reality. So they get jealous. They want their narcissist at heart. They need to have their narcissistic supply. And when they're being denied, or when worse, somebody else is getting that attention, then they don't much like it. I wonder, because this guy had not made any move toward John Ray over several years, and then boom, right before Rex Heuermann gets arrested, it fires back up again. What do you think that was about? Was that a warning to John Ray to keep his mouth shut? Was that kind of a last hoorah, knowing that, the walls were closing in and they were about to catch him? Like, what was it? And I'm going to say this, and I believe this in my heart of hearts. I know there are people that are saying, well, he's saying that the wife may have had something to do with it. I'm saying don't be so quick to believe that, because that may be exactly what Rex Heuermann wanted you to believe, or for the cops to believe. It keeps him safe if he can say to his family members, if you ever talk to the police, if you ever let them know anything about me, you too shall be implicated. So you better be quiet. You see, let me have a hair out of your head. Yanks a piece of hair out of her head, puts it into the tape as she's standing there horrified. And he says, okay, you want to go tell what you know? Go on. But that piece of DNA right there, you will go to jail. You see what I mean? So I this recording of the woman's voice, are you enjoying your pizza? Hell, she may not have ever even known that he did that. It's possible he could have had that on some kind of recording. Maybe they were doing a birthday party, or maybe it was just a normal Friday night at home watching a football game or something. And it got recorded, but then later on, when he's sitting around trying to figure out how to terrorize, John Ray, he clips that little bit of her saying, you enjoying your pizza? And then he orders the pizza. And now he can somehow say, oh, you're implicated in this now. You better keep your mouth shut. They're going to come knocking, and you better not tell them anything. You see what I'm talking about? So we have to expect that we don't know anything. We can't just fly on a wing in the prayer. We can't go with wild speculation of utter and complete guilt. You also should not go on a wild speculation of angelic innocence. There's a whole lot in between those two extremes. It would not be likely, I'm certain of this, it would be highly unlikely for a woman of her age, 2 adult children living in the home, long marriage, unlikely that she would know what he was doing and would be a part of it. Absolutely unlikely. There would be no motivation at all. Zero. You're like, but What about the Barbie and Ken killer in Canada? Yeah, that was a real deal. They were both involved, and some people say that the girl, can't place her name right now, but that the girl was actually the catalyst, that she really got a sexual kick out of the control and the violence. And he just kind of went along because he's this creepy, narcissistic, weirdo. But that she was really the one. So yes, that does happen. It did happen. That's one of the more notable or notorious cases. However, she was in a period of time in her life where she was getting the sexual charges, right? So there was that sexual component. At some point, though, for these people that are getting sexually excited and that's what drives these murders, at some point, if they go their whole lives, they don't get caught, eventually the hormone levels go down dramatically and that motivation goes away. It's no longer there anymore. Green River Killer was one of those, right? He quit before he got caught. And then because of DNA, decades later, he's, ended up getting arrested and whatnot. But in this specific case, this specific situation, I don't see it. I don't believe it, not for a minute. Between her age, the fact she's got 2 kids living in the home with her, she's the primary caregiver for the adult son, been living in the same house their whole lives, not very nomadic, not frequently traveling, all the things that are red flags for this kind of behavior. It's just not there. So if it's true, and they'll know, like they'll find DNA down in that basement. They'll be able to know if there's other females' DNA, in that house. I think it would be more likely that it was done as a method of control, that it was done as a method of her not cooperating with police questioning. He knew the gig was up. When they released those 911 calls, that was the beginning of the end. That was the beginning of the end. There were too many connections. They had the video of his truck when he was going to pick up one of the girls from the Holiday Inn. They had another eyewitness of his truck there on Jones Island. He knew the gig was up. When the 911 call got released, that was it. That was the beginning of the end. Oh, absolutely, Kathy. Yeah. So, if he had been audacious with his family, that would not be unusual for a sadistic narcissist to be audacious, to be taunting to family members. You think you know so much about me? Go ahead, go tell, see what happens to you. That is a common kind of thing we hear in domestic violence. These abusers can play terrible games to keep control of the people in their families. So I think we run a risk in saying, she had no idea. She was completely, in the dark. I wouldn't do that to her. And here's the reason I wouldn't do that to her. What if they went into that house and that basement was filled with blood or other types of DNA or whatever? Then it becomes highly improbable that those 3 adults are living in that house and they didn't stop 1 minute and go, gosh, I wonder if a dog died downstairs. Do we have dead animals in the backyard? Like, where is that intense odor coming from? The reason I use that example, we lived in one of these little frame built houses. It was up on blocks, so you could get underneath the house if you needed to work on wiring or something. We had gone, I think we went to Disney World, and we came home, and when I went in the house, you couldn't stand to be in there. You could smell the house before you ever got to it. And I was like, oh my what is that? So immediately I turned around, collected my children, went over to my mom and dad's house. And I said, something is wrong and I'm scared and it's gross. My dad went over there. Everybody's looking. My husband was offshore. My dad went over there looking through all the closets, looking everywhere. Went through even the refrigerator to see if there was something in there that was rotting, or something, and didn't find anything. And we were at my mom and dad's house for, I don't know, probably like 4 weeks, 5 weeks. It's crazy. So finally, my husband comes back home, and for some reason, he thought maybe it was something related to the water, the sewage system, maybe. And so when he came home, he had called this plumber to come over and see, the guy goes down under the house. And when he yells at my husband, he says, "I know what's wrong." And of course, my husband was so cool because he was like, "Well, I figured out what the problem was. It was the sewage." And the guy pulls out, a dead dog. So we had a dog that just, it wasn't our dog. It was like a stray dog, but went under the house, and that was the end of his life. And he wasn't covered up at all. And it was summer, and it was, yeah. If you've never smelled decomposition, I'm nauseated even thinking about it now. It's terrible. So it's very hard. If they went down there and they found a lot of, evidence of blood or whatnot, it's going to be it's not a good thing to think that the three adults were in the house and they didn't notice. They would have noticed. You could, like I said, I was at my parents' house for probably 3 or 4 weeks. That was a dog. So there's a lot more, it's not just white and it's not just black. There's so many levels of gray in between those two colors. There could be a lot of situations where maybe she was aware of something, but there was a bigger problem that was forcing her to keep quiet. And manipulation and control coming from one of these sadistic, sexually motivated serial killers, they would easily threaten someone to keep their mouth shut. Easily. Wouldn't bother them a bit to do it. I did the same with a plumber. It was a dead rat in the underbelly of my home. It gave me a nervous breakdown. Cinnamon. I'm not even questioning when you say it gave you a nervous breakdown, because I'm with you. That was the most surreal and horrible month of my life, thinking, what is going on? How is this possible? It was embarrassing. It was awful. I cleaned everything with vinegar. We got an ozone machine. It was unbelievable. So yes, Cinnamon Hot knows the smell, and it's insidious. It just gets into everything. All of our bedding, I threw everything away. Got new pillows, new sheets, new blankets, everything. It was everywhere. It's horrible. It's horrible. We painted. It was god awful. And of course, if probably, I mean, you can't say for sure, but probably if my husband had not been offshore, he probably would have known to, probably would have crawled under the house and looked. So, that it probably would have been solved sooner had he been home, but he wouldn't. But those things never happened when he was home. Don't get me wrong. There was to be a disaster. It's because he was gone working. Yeah, you have to leave if you can't get it out of there. And then even once they found the dog, they got it out and everything. It took us. So he went underneath the house and put all kinds of stuff in the dirt, put, loaded up dirt and then filled it in with bags of dirt. It was a terrible, terrible thing. Terrible. So he admits to a persuasive hammer. He does, Elizabeth. And it's chilling. It's a chilling video. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, Elizabeth. Just remembering it, I'm feeling nauseated right now. Yeah, horrible. So we need to be careful. I don't think, let me be very clear. Please, please, please. I want to be very clear. I don't think it is. I don't have any reason to say there's a slight possibility or a moderate possibility. I don't have anything that would lead me to say, yes, Miss Heuermann was a part of this. She was active in it and she was having fun, right? There's nothing at all that has been reported on that would say that could be, that it's possible she could have been involved in that way. I don't see it. I just don't. But knowing what's been reported about him and knowing what was on the 911 call and making conjecture that perhaps he was there that night. One of the voices sounds kind of like him. If I consider those things and he is in fact the Long Island serial killer, then I can say I absolutely believe that he could and he would threaten his children and his wife not to cooperate with law enforcement. I believe that is 100% possible and likely. But that is not the same thing as saying she was a willing, happy participant. I do not believe that. Not even close. I cannot find one factor that would lead me to say, maybe in a weird long shot kind of way. No, I don't even see the long shot. Not in this. Her age, the ages of her children, the fact that they all live in the home with her, the fact that her son is at home, he is disabled, and she is the primary caregiver of record. I'm talking about. Though all of those circumstances would have created an environment where she is in survival mode 24/7. She is not pursuing a fun little night of serial killing. No sexual motivation for that kind of thing. Nothing. No. She's firmly in a situation, I believe, where she is firmly focused on survival, right? Just not there. That idea, that profile is not there. It's not. It's a completely different situation than the old Barbie and Ken, notorious killers in Canada. It's just different. But if he is who they say he is, then I think it's probable, not only possible, but probable, that he would have threatened them. You keep your mouth shut. When they come knocking, because he knew they would, when they come knocking, you don't know anything. You become suddenly unable to speak. And just to make sure you cooperate, here, look at that piece of hair there. Let's just stick it right here on this tape. Now, you open your mouth, you're going to prison too. And then who's going to take care of your son? You see how that works? And that is what they do. Oh, she looks shell-shocked, traumatized, beat up, put down, worn out. She looks like she is just barely able to put one foot in front of the other, and it is heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And I feel so bad for her. Let me say this too. Just, when I was researching all this and whatnot last night, I ran across this video of her, and I didn't cry, but I got that lump in my throat. I felt terrible. You just get this feeling you want to protect this person, right? Apparently there are still reporters camped out in front of their house. I mean, enough. Go home at this point, right? Enough's enough. So apparently there are still these reporters sitting out in front of the house. And she's outside with her son and the dog. She's just kind of messing around in her yard, And these reporters start yelling at her, trying to get her to answer questions. And she said, I can't listen to you. I don't want to listen to you. Do not talk to me. Right? She's firm. She's not doing this. Enough is enough. She's had enough. And they keep on asking her questions, and she rages. She starts screaming and yelling at them, flips them the bird, and everything. And a lot of people have said, oh, she's a horrid woman. Look at this. This is evidence she's a horrible woman. No, this is evidence that the reporters are violating her boundaries. It's evidence that she's had enough and she's out of control, and somebody needs to protect her and those kids and let her have some time just to breathe. And you've got these reporters who are there, and they're recording every step she makes. Sure, her house is in shambles. Her backyard is in shambles. There's only one place to sit, and that's out on the front porch. And then when you go out on the front porch, you're like, a monkey in a zoo. So did she break? Did she get frustrated? Did she lash out? Yes, and that's okay. That happens to people. But then, so that one I understood. And in some way I was like, good for you. Give them hell, right? I had a moment where I was like, yeah, finally, stand up for yourself. I was good with that. The worst one, though, that made me so sad is that sounds like the same guy, not the same female reporter, but the same male reporter. And he starts talking to her, and obviously either she thought, well, gosh, I wish I hadn't lost my temper. And so now she's trying to be in control and be polite and everything. Or someone else got onto her, maybe one of the attorneys, and said, you're not going to be able to attack people because then they'll implicate you, blah, blah, blah. But it was so sad because they start talking to her, and you can just tell she's just like a prisoner. She's just like, okay, what do you want to know? And the look on her face is just surrender. She just utter and complete surrender. It's the saddest. I feel like crying talking about it. It's the saddest video that I've seen. I was wishing that the angry, aggressive woman was back. It was too much to see her so used up. And you've got to think about this. She's been living with this man who really and truly, there is reason to believe that he would have been brutal to his family. So she lives with him. He's horrible throughout the years. Finally, he gets arrested. How long did it take her to go file for divorce? Not long. She wanted out. She wasn't shocked, going, what? My dear sweet husband? I don't believe it. He's an innocent man. None of that from her. It was almost like she said, oh my God, thank you, God. Let me get that divorce. Let me get away from this guy. Even if they end up letting him go, I want to be out of here. So, she's giving the appearance that she's not in love with him. This was not a good, loving, warm relationship. She didn't question if they had the right guy. So, we need to be really careful as this thing kind of moves on through, because someone like him, if he is the Long Island serial killer, could be incredibly manipulative. So we got to be super careful not to just drink the Kool-Aid, you know. I'm at the doctor, can't really moderate. That's okay, critters. I hope you're feeling okay. Hopefully it's just a checkup. All right. Okay, so I'm done. I hope you guys have a great Thursday planned for yourself. Critters does not. She's at the doctor's office. So sorry about that, Critters. Hi, Jessica Rutledge. How are you doing? Hey, Vicki Carpenter. And go through and do the roll call. Let's see. Stacy, welcome. Good morning. Hey, Team Doocy Doo 222. Sweet Tea, Scarlet Summer, Silky Southern Tea. We have two different teas. By the way, Silky Southern Tea, I'm not sure if you're still here or not. I just love your content, your channel, and the work that you're doing with Coburger. It's really great. Shar, Truth Seeker, welcome. Dixie, Pam Frenchman, Diamond Paw. Crime Sleuthin was here. I bet she had to leave, though. Shalimar, welcome. How are you doing? Kathy R. If I miss anybody, I apologize. Amber Rose, welcome, my friend. Hey, Bebop. Elizabeth Ross. Gomo Gomez, how are you doing? AP, broken hyoid suggests strangulation. Yep, that puncture wound is very, very curious. Gray Pubes Investigates is here with us today. Thank you so much, Mr. Investigates. Kate, Four Big Little Voices is the one that pointed out the bluegrass in Kentucky. All right. So I think I got most anybody that's commenting. There's a lot of people in here, but these are the people talking. Elizabeth Ross. R. Whip. Excuse me. She may have been scared and didn't really question him. I'm sure she wasn't dumb. I'm with you 100%, R. Whip. Absolutely what I was thinking. Yep. Same. All right. Jessica Rutledge. And we got Vicki Carpenter already. All right. All right, critters. Everybody is saying, hope you are well. And you get a yummy sucker and a sticker. They better give you a cute little sticker when you're done. All right. Okay. So this video was about John Ray, the person that he is. And that in many ways, this story with the Gilgo 4 and Rex Heuermann as Long Island serial killer arrest, in some ways, John Ray himself has become a story within the bigger story. The Gilgo 4 Long Island serial killer period of time, there's so many stories within that one story. It's not a simple case. It is very complicated with really complicated and unscrupulous people, and also the best of the best involved. There's no telling how many years it's gonna take for it to all unfold and play out, but I have no doubt it will continue to be the case that keeps on giving. Kind of like Coburger too. I think Coburger's, going to be the same. All right, people, I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday. I have to go to work. So it was good talking to y'all. I appreciate y'all talking with me. I hope that you hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't. And, I'll be back, right?